In the legal world, there is a combination of forces that feed a corrupt and suffocating legal system for attorneys. Law schools, law professionals, judges, and even the firms themselves for whom you work create a system, a matrix, if you will, that is nothing like what you thought when you passed the bar exam. The purpose of this podcast is to help you escape this legal matrix, leading you out of the proverbial desert to be free of the bondage of the matrix. Hosted by Bryce D. Nyer, attorney at law with over 30 years experience in the trenches of civil and criminal litigation at the state, federal, and international levels. He's a highly accomplished and resourceful legal professional, a true master of his craft, and he's here to help you get your life back. Here's your host, Bryce D. Nyer.
All right. This is Bryce D. Nyer coming at you live from Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg, for another episode of Escape the Legal Matrix. Tonight's topic: are you a crisis maker or a rainmaker? And there's a key critical difference, and we're going to explain why. So look, for you law students out there studying for the bar this summer, this kind of date where we are, or you're in law school going into the next year, or you're already out and about, or you're in practice, or you're searching for a job, or you're in any other industry profession, this will apply to you about whether you're a crisis maker or a rainmaker. So here's the deal. Over the weekend, as I was sitting going over my 1 to 3 year plan about what I'm going to do in my life over the next 1 to 3 years, assuming I'm alive, and again, tomorrow's never guaranteed for any man or woman. But going through the domains of body, being, balance, and business, and a list of things I set out to do back in 2021, a couple of years ago, the issue was how much of that did I get done? And is it done? Is it still in progress? And as I was going through this list with one of the smartest people I've ever met, she's top notch. I'm not going to give out her name here because I don't have permission, but she has been a consultant for numerous matters at all levels and probably one of the smartest human beings I have ever encountered in my entire life. And as we were going over this particular list, I noticed that in my life that I fueled myself through crisis to crisis to crisis. I mean, I am in a profession, and you lawyers that have been around for a couple of years, and you law students probably don't know this yet, but you are in a profession of chaos, crisis, and confrontation. You are. And it's constantly collision after collision after collision. And of course, that's expected in the legal matrix, i.e., some people call it the legal profession, but I'm not sure it's a profession anymore. It's more like a gladiator battle in the Coliseum of confusion and chaos and collision. But anyway, I sat there and did this timeline of my life, and I realized and discovered that a great portion of my life was fueled by crisis. Whether I created it or the circumstance created it, and I may have contributed to the circumstances, but it is what has fueled me. And when you don't have a crisis ongoing, there is a void that is inside you, and then you have to fill that void. And I can tell you personally and professionally that is true, because you begin to lose a little bit of focus and clarity because you're so used to collision and chaos and fighting and war, and now you have no place to go. Now, contrast that with a rainmaker. A rainmaker, you can divide it how it is, but it's basically a man or woman that comes in and just essentially, when the wells of body, being, balance, and business are dry, this person fills them up. This person's a leader. This person makes things happen. It brings home the bacon. Is the catalyst for success in a company, a business, even in their private lives. So they don't necessarily operate by chaos and crisis, but if they are in chaos or if there is a crisis, they are moving forward in a different manner in these domains of body, being, balance, and business, and ultimately fulfillment, to where no matter what is happening, their fuel is not from the chaos and the crisis, but in reality, it's from the joy of the process they go through to solve the crisis, to solve the chaos. And I have seen this play out again and again and again and again and again, at least in my life. And I look at my colleagues that I know and I see every day, and their lives are constantly in crisis or constantly in chaos. And it will eventually wear you down. It will eventually make you tired. It will sap the very joy out of you. Because the minute you're not in crisis, the minute you don't have chaos, the minute you're not colliding, you're sitting there and you've got this huge void, this blood-sucking wound, this open chest wound, and you're bleeding out because then you run out of your lifeblood and you're dead. And that's what's going to happen to you if you don't know how to navigate in this thing we call the legal matrix. And remember, the legal matrix is not just about lawsuits. It's not just about lawyers. It can be anybody. Anybody, not even a lawyer, not even a paralegal, not even a legal assistant, not even involved in the court system, because your whole life, from the day you're born to the day you die, is going to be dictated by some legal statute, ordinance, you name it, some document, some policy. It's going to dictate your life and body, being, balance, and business, and ultimately will determine whether you're fulfilled and the type of joy that you have. But if you live by crisis, if that's what you feed on, there will come a point in time when there will be a lull in the war, a lull in the battle, and you will not know what to do with yourself. And this has happened to me. It's just like people that go through divorce. Once their person moves out of the marital residence, or the divorce is done, or they've resolved the main issues, and like child custody, nothing's ever truly resolved. That goes on forever. But the other issues, once they're resolved and people go home to an empty home and there's nobody to fight with, there's nobody to conflict with, there's nobody to collide with, there's nobody to criticize, you have this void. Because your whole life in that example and those examples have been fueled by your hatred, by your conflict, by your collision, by your chaos, and now it's not there. And the only person you have to argue with is yourself. And that's it, and you look in the mirror, it's kind of hard to argue with yourself because they're not really talking back. They're looking back in the mirror at you. It's just your reflection. So I want you to think about this. Are you a crisis maker or are you a rainmaker? I mean, this was a really sobering discovery that I made about myself over this past weekend as I sat down calmly and coolly and for hours and hours going and planning about, what am I going to do with what's left of my life, personally and professionally. And I'm telling you, folks, your runways, they get shorter every year that goes by. Maybe you're in your 20s, you think you're going to live forever. I'm going to tell you something. Those decades will fly by at warp drive, and you'll be down the road 30, 40, 50 years. And the issue is, how did you live? Were you a crisis maker or were you a rainmaker? And so for me, I'm not going to tell you to do things that I'm not going to do myself. And for me, I am taking this deep, deep look at where I am in the domains of body, of being, in balance. And am I fulfilled? Do I have joy? And I got to tell you folks something. In a lot of those areas, I have been without joy for a long, long time. Now, I can go litigate with the best, and I get frustrated with the legal profession, i.e. the legal matrix. It makes my head explode on most days. It does. And for you law students, for you brand new lawyers, I'm telling you, you better pay heed and you better understand yourself. You need to understand you better than anybody else does, because if you don't, then you will be the crisis maker and you will not be a rainmaker. What you will do is you will be somebody's $3 an hour monkey jumping to the commands of the person playing the music. You'll be the puppet. Essentially, somebody's pulling your strings. So I'm going to leave you with this. The lesson in all of this is just like the saying, those that live by the sword die by the sword. If you live as a crisis maker your whole life, and that's what fuels you and feeds you, you will die as a crisis maker. If you take command of the domains of body, of being, of balance, and business, and ultimately fulfillment, and you become a rainmaker in all four of those domains, then you will be a rainmaker. Your life will be filled with challenges, but you'll be fed by the joy of the process you go through in all of those domains to become the king or queen of your own kingdoms. This is true. This is fact. This is not just feelings. But if you allow the legal matrix to run your life, to command it, to consume it, you will be the walking dead. Remember that. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. You live by the crisis maker, you'll die as a crisis maker. You live as a rainmaker, you'll die as a rainmaker. And everything in between, the quality of where your life is, where it goes, is ultimately up to you. This is Bryce Denier, again with another episode of Escape the Legal Matrix. We came at you live from Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg, where every day men and women don the uniform and do what? They go out and wage war to defend the very rights that we so often take for granted. This is Bryce out.